Normal forms we actually use to reduce the data redundancy in the tables. So there are like several ways to create tables. As we discussed, like we just go and create a table with create table command. But how do we create? That is up to us. So this first enough states that whenever you create a table, that should not have multi-attribute values. So what it actually means is that let's say I have a table called students or employee, and one of the particular columns is that mobile number. So mobile number is the one of the column that I have in my database table. And as you may have noticed, every other user, like every other employee, has like literally two numbers, mobile numbers, or plus even sometimes. So what we do to capture all those numbers is that we just store under one particular column only. So that is, I have one number listed in here, 908765432, and then this number. I have these two numbers stored in under one column. So these are the two mobile numbers that are stored under one column, separated by comma. So this is what called multi-valued attribute. So multi-valued column value. So to get out of this particular way, way of insertion into databases, we have first normal form, which states that it should not have any multi-attributed values. So for the definition, if any relation contains like composite or multi-valued attribute, so this is the multi-valued attribute. If any relation contains that particular multi-valued attribute, it says that the first normal form is being like declined, or it does not satisfy the rules of first normal form. To get over that, like to get into first normal form, what we do is that the solution, we create table in such a way that it shows mobile number 1 and mobile number 2. So these are the two columns, and I can store this particular first value into first column and then a second value into second column. So here I made my data into single valued attribute. So there is only one value in the mobile number column. So this is what all about first normal form. And like let's say I have a student table with okay, let's go with employee only, which had ID, name, and mobile number are as the columns. Now what do I have? ID, name, mobile 1, mobile 2. So these are my updated columns. To create a table with this structure, which is having multi-value attributes, to a single valued attributes in this way, that is the process of we are getting over from the like getting our table into first normal form. So this is all about first normal form. You guys got it? Yes, sir, Krishna. So one more thing I missed, guys. It's kind of little my bad.
అన్నా ఇది
Yep.
ఫోన్ నంబర్ ఇచ్చినావు కదన్నా
Hmm.
అది మామూలు వేరే ఏమి ఇచ్చిన వాల్యూ నంబర్ కాకుండా మనము నేమ్స్ ఇచ్చే కాదా?
Yes, you can give. So there is a one mistake in this particular structure that I have given. Let's go with an example. So I have employee ID 1 and his name is A and his mobile number, let's say 987. And he has another mobile number. Let's do it this way. 987, 789. So these are the two mobile numbers. Let's say, for example, and I have employee ID 2 and his name is B. And he has mobile number like 75. So this obviously gets my first normal form into like a violation. This particular data, a mobile number of 987 and 789, both multi-valued attributes into one column of particular row, that violates my first normal form. For this, what I should be doing is that I should have one ID and A as the name and 987 as this contact number, and followed by one again, followed by his name again, and followed by 789. What is his mobile number? So 2B and then 615. So this is how I restructured my data to get it into a first normal form. So previous one, this is a little of my mistake. It is actually second normal form. So whatever to multi-valued attributes to be converted to single valued attributes in this way. So you create a new record with the multi-valued attribute being converted to a single valued attribute. So this is about first normal form. Pardon me, there is a bit of mistake in this. So are we clear for this?
ఓకేనా?
Okay. So this is about first normal form. And we have another one called second normal form, which states that if the table has to be in normal form, then that particular table must be in a first normal form, and as well as it should not contain any partial dependency. So such that it says like attributes which are like not part of primary key or anything, that should not be dependent on any other table column. So let's say we have some table called employee only, which has ID, name. These are pretty much defined what do you call columns. We have department ID, and as well as DPT name. So for this DPT department ID column is like a unique, like independent column, which can have multiple values, and the department name will be dependent on department ID. So whatever the department ID, let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the corresponding to the department name will be changed automatically. So for the department ID one, let's say the department name could be development, and the second department is of testing, third department is of support, fourth department is of implementation, so on. So here, what I got is that for a particular department ID, there is a dependency for department name. So department name is directly dependent on department ID. So for that, what we should be doing is, so we can say that there is one particular column, that particular department ID, sorry, this department ID and name are both are independent on each other. And this department name we don't need in this table. So we can have it in some other tables or whatever, however we want. But having these two dependent columns in one table actually gives the redundant data. So if we have department ID for a table, that is more than enough to find a department name. But both having it on a same table, it's completely like a redundant data. This particular way of data, way of defining a table violates the rules of second normal form. For that, what we will be doing is that we will be creating employee table with ID, name, and department ID as the columns. And we will create another table called department, which again has ID and department name. So instead of one table with multiple redundant data, we created another table with having like minimal data. So obviously ID is dependent on name, but that is a prime attribute. With that only we can find the particular column uniquely. So this is how we come over the second normal form. So there should not be any dependency between the columns. So instead of employee table with multiple columns which has dependency, that can be converted into like a second normal form data table. In this way, we create another table which is having like multiple redundancy reduced. So for example, let me take the data. So I have IDs from 10,000. I have 10,000 employees. So followed by like 1 to 10,000 names according to that. And as well as I have only 4 departments. So all the 10,000 employees should be available or like should fall under any of the 4 departments, any one of those 4 departments. And having department ID only 1, 2, 3, 4, and followed by department name for 10,000 records. That will be completely a redundant data. Instead of that, we maintain till here ID, name, and department ID. And then here, when we come here in the department table, we will have only 4 records with ID and name. And we will be having so in this way, we can actually create like use all the data redundancy or the duplication. So this is about the second normal form. So there should not be any partial dependencies between the columns. And this could be in one of the way that any of two columns, such as like any of combination of two columns can define the third one as well. So that also implies to partial dependency that can also should also be removed to fall under second normal form structure. So we have third normal form. Third normal form states that there should not be any transitive dependency between the columns. So for that, I would say I have column A, B, and C and D inside my table, and the column B is dependent on column C, and which is also dependent on column B. So this particular transitive dependency should not be there in my database table. So if we have that dependency, transitive dependency, it fails to be in the third normal form. In other words, let's say we have an address to store in a database. So for that, I might have district and state and then country. So if I have the district, I can find the state. If I have the state, I can find the country. So this particular thing is dependent on this. So if I have the district, I can find the state. If I have the state, you can find the country. So this is called transitive dependency. So you might have seen the transition, it will be B to C and C to D. So same way, this is a transition dependency, transitive dependency, which should not be like available in this particular to get out of the star normal form, we should not have any transitive dependency between non-prime attributes. And it also should be in the second normal form. So first normal form, there is multi-valued attributes, and second normal form, partial dependencies. And if an object has to be in the second normal form, it should also be in the first normal form as well. Same way, if for the third normal form, should not contain any transitive dependencies, and as well as it should be in second normal form as well. And second normal form states that it should be in the first normal form as well. So this concludes that if we want our table to be in a third normal form, it should be in second enough as well. So second enough states that it should also be in first enough. So with our example of address, to get over this, we can define one of other table in such a way that state and countries are defined in some other tables. So what I meant by that is we have like let's go with the student table, which actually has a student number, student name, and student state, country, which is student state and country are completely dependent on each other. So that is a transitive dependency. To get over that, we will create another table with states and country codes. So for a country, we'll have multiple states. So that gives us the conclusion that we are not in third normal form for at all. So this is about like basic things about normal forms. Whenever you are creating a table object, so you should be considering all these things. So any doubts or anything so far? If you did not get anything? If any doubts or concerns, drop it in a message box. You guys able to understand this? Yeah, unmute yourself and like pick up no issues. Okay, I assume that no doubts so far. So by this, we come to a conclusion of the normal forms. So what else we are left with? I think we are left with one more concept called what do you call it? Inner queries. So subqueries. So that will continue now. What are actually subqueries? So by the definition, it says that this query inside the query. But how it actually works and how we get like how those both are independent on each other and what actually happens inside the query, I mean inside the subquery. So that we will discuss now. So the syntax stays same. We just select anything or all from, again we go here again we do select start from blah blah blah. And again, if you can have where conditions, you can put it in this as well, where clause, and again a where clause in here as well. So this states that so this particular query inside parentheses, which I've defined here, is a subquery, and the results which I got in here will be put up to this outer query with where conditions been applied on it. So let's say I have two tables, which is employee, and let me write it. Let me put up another example. For now, we have this particular table. And we have EMP2 table as well. Yes, we do have it. So this particular query define about subquery, which actually states that we have written one particular query which selects job from employee as a subquery, and I have aliased it with some keyword called subq, it is just alias name, and I'm selecting all the details which are from subquery to this particular query from all the subqueries result. So that is all this particular statement does. So while going deep, we have like multiple like too much of information into subqueries. We have correlated subqueries and non-correlated, which is like one table is dependent on another table, and outer query is dependent on the inner query's results, and as such. So for now, let me take an example. Let's start from employee, where I in select start from EMP2. So what it says that I need to select the details of employee from employee table who is already present, who is actually present in EMP2 table as well. So for this, I should have only ID column present in it. So let's execute this. See, I got only a few details. So this is also a subquery. inner query. Outer query is dependent on inner query's results. So this is one way of interpreting subqueries. Correlated subqueries we'll discuss tomorrow, which is that subquery is dependent on the outer query's results.